The authority of the Secretary of a military department to carry out a military construction project under the pilot program shall expire on September 30, 2024. Any construction commenced under the pilot program before the expiration date may continue to completion. Reporting requirement. 1. Report required, not later than 180 days after the date of the enactment of this Act, and every 180 days thereafter through December 31, 2024. The Secretaries of the military departments shall submit to the Congressional Defense Committees a report on the progress of the pilot program. 2. Report elements. The report shall include the following. A description of the status of the military construction projects selected to be conducted under the pilot program. B. An explanation of the reasons why those military construction projects were selected. C. An analysis of the following. The projected or actual carbon footprint over the full life cycle of the various sustainable building materials evaluated in the pilot program. 2. The life cycle costs of the various sustainable building materials evaluated in the pilot program. 3. The resilience to extreme weather events of the various sustainable building materials evaluated in the pilot program. 4. Any impact on construction timeliness of using the various sustainable building materials evaluated in the pilot program. The cost-effectiveness of the military construction projects conducted under the pilot program using sustainable building materials as compared to other materials historically used in military construction. D. Any updated guidance the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment has released in relation to the procurement policy for future military construction projects based on comparable benefits realized from use of sustainable building materials, including guidance on prioritizing sustainable materials in establishing evaluation criteria for military construction project contracts when technically feasible. F. Sustainable building materials defined in this section. The term sustainable building material means any building material the use of which will reduce carbon emissions over the life cycle of the building. The term includes mass timber, concrete, and other carbon-reducing materials. Sec. 2862. Pilot Program on Establishment of Account for Reimbursement for Use of Testing Facilities at Installations of the Department of the Air Force. A. Pilot Program required. Not later than 180 days after the date of the enactment of this Act, the Secretary of the Air Force shall establish a pilot program to authorize installations of the Department of the Air Force to establish a reimbursable account for the purpose of being reimbursed for the use of testing facilities on such installation. B. Installations selected. The Secretary of the Air Force shall select not more than 2 installations of the Department of the Air Force to participate in the pilot program from among any such installations that are part of the Air Force Flight Test Center construct and are currently funded for facility, sustainment, restoration, and modernization, FSRM, through the research, development, test, and evaluation account of the Department of the Air Force. C. Oversight of funds. 1. Installation Commander. The commander of an installation selected for the pilot program shall have direct oversight over 50% of the funds allocated to the installation for facility, sustainment, restoration, and modernization. 2. Air Force Civil Engineer Center Commander. The commander of the Air Force Civil Engineer Center shall have direct oversight over the remaining 50% of facility, sustainment, restoration, and modernization funds allocated to an installation selected for the pilot program. D. Briefing and report. 1. Briefing, not later than 30 days after establishing the pilot program. The Secretary of the Air Force shall brief the Congressional Defense Committees on the pilot program. 2. Annual report. not later than 1 year after establishing the pilot program under subsection A, and annually thereafter through the year following termination of the pilot program. The Secretary of the Air Force shall submit to the Congressional Defense Committees a report on the pilot program. E. Termination. The pilot program shall terminate on December 1, 2026. Subtitle H. Asia-Pacific and Indo-Pacific Issues Sec. 2871. Improved oversight of certain infrastructure services provided by Naval Facilities Engineering Systems Command Pacific. The Secretary of the Navy shall designate an administrative position within the Naval Facilities Engineering Systems Command Pacific for the purpose of improving the continuity of management and oversight of real property and infrastructure assets in the Pacific area of responsibility related to the training needs of the armed forces, particularly regarding leased property for which the lease will expire within 10 years after the date of the enactment of this Act. Sec. 2872. Annual Congressional Briefing on Renewal of Department of Defense Easements and Leases of Land in Hawaii. A. Annual briefing required. Not later than February 1 of each year, the Secretary of Defense shall brief the Congressional Defense Committee on the progress being made by the Department of Defense to renew each Department of Defense land lease and easement in the state of Hawaii that 1. Encompasses 1 acre or more, and 2. Will expire within 10 years after the date of the briefing. B. Required elements of briefing. Each briefing provided under subsection A shall include the following: 1. The location, size, and expiration date of each lease and easement described in such subsection. 2. Major milestones and expected timelines for maintaining access to the land covered by such lease and easement. 3. Actions completed over the preceding 2 years for such lease and easement. 4. Department-wide and service-specific authorities governing the extension of such lease and easement.